change and address affordability.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals like to try and blame everyone else for the inflation that they caused, but Canadians know that it was the Prime Minister's massive deficits and money printing that has driven inflation to record highs. Now, it's too late to undo the inflation the government's already caused, but it's not too late to do something about soaring energy costs going forward. Analysts are predicting that home heating costs are going to skyrocket this winter, with many families paying twice as much this winter than they did last winter just to stay warm. Will this costly coalition abandon its plan to triple the carbon tax and give Canadians a break on their home heating costs?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think we should actually deal in facts. Most of the G7 countries actually have higher inflation rates than do Canada, and that opposition actually supported almost all of the COVID supports that they are actually speaking to. But as I say, Mr. Speaker, more than 80% of Canadian families get more money back than they pay in the price on pollution. We are investing $250 million to help families to actually reduce their heating costs through the implementation of things like heat pumps and to address the climate crisis that we face concurrently. It is important to know that you have to have a plan both for affordability and the economy, but you also need a plan to fight climate change.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals like to pretend that inflation is kind of like the weather. Like you can bundle up as the inflation front rolls in, and mothers line their children's pockets with extra 20s in case prices go up. But we all know it's caused when governments spend more money than they have and run the printing presses to pay for it. Yeah. And the carbon tax isn't working. The people who are concerned the most about climate change should be opposed to the carbon tax the most, because they haven't hit a single target they've set for themselves. And the Prime Minister's own watchdog has said most Canadians pay more than they get back. So will they abandon their plans to hike the carbon tax on Canadian families this winter?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, as I have said, it's very important to address the affordability concerns. That's exactly what we are doing. But, Mr. Speaker, we also have to take into account the future costs associated with not addressing the climate issue. These folks actually won't even mention the words climate change, and in fact, their leader has not mentioned it in 6 months of campaigning. At the end of the day, the costs associated with climate change and inaction on it will be $100 billion per year by 2050. That is an appalling thing to leave to our children. At the end of the day, let's ensure that we're working for today and working for tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All Canadians are proud of our country, but there's one thing that we have, and it's undeniable. We have to heat our homes in the winter. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity when you're Canadian. But this government, Mr. Speaker, wants to increase the Liberal carbon tax. In Quebec, there are lots of people who heat with propane, whether they're families or business people or farmers. They need propane. Does the government think that it's a really good idea to increase the tax on propane when we have inflation and winter's coming? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, today, the Conservatives can work with us to vote later this week to put more money in Canadians' pockets to help with costs this winter. We have a plan that puts a price on pollution to try to protect for the future. He can do something now to help us with housing and dental care. It's their duty. It's our duty. We're here for Canadians. That's our plan. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, today, the Liberal government could do something for the benefit of all Canadian families. We asked them to lower the carbon tax, and they didn't want to. What they want to do is triple the Liberal carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, we've gotten to the verge of winter. We need to heat our homes in Canada, and the Liberal carbon tax will have a direct effect on inflation. All Canadian families are dealing with the problem of inflation. Will this government stand up today and announce the right thing by not increasing the carbon tax? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, two things are clear. The Conservatives don't believe in climate change, and nor do they believe in reducing taxes for Canadians. To wit, in 2015, we reduced taxes for Canadians. The Conservatives voted no, and we did the same thing in 2018. And the Conservatives voted no. And we did the same thing to try to help workers in 2021. And in 2022, we lowered taxes on small business, and the Conservatives voted no. We're here to support, and they vote no. Now, a member for Avignon, Lamitis, Matane, Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, as of Friday, the handgun freeze is in effect. It's now illegal to sell, buy, or transfer legally acquired handguns. There are still some details to be worked out, and we'll make sure that gets done. But this is a step forward that the Bloc Québécois supports. Now that this has been done, when will the government finally get serious about the illegal guns that are used in the vast majority of shootings in Montreal? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to work with this government. We announced last Friday that for the first time, we introduced a national freeze on handguns. It's a very good thing. It's a very good step. I'd like to thank my colleague for her cooperation on this legislation and on the borders. We're going to continue to invest and add resources to stop illegal arms traffickers. Thank you.